Hello, friends and families. Welcome to the Educa DPS podcast. My name is Javier Ibarra, Senior Manager of Media and Public Relations for Denver Public Schools. Our guest today is Adrian Endres, Executive Director of Multilingual Services for DPS, and we are excited to learn about all of the benefits of obtaining the seal of biliteracy. Adrian, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm really good. How are you doing?
I am great. I'm so excited to have you. We've worked so much throughout the year together, but this is the first time that we get to host the podcast together.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
I have a very deep question for you.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
I know that you're very passionate about what you do. Can you share a little bit about yourself and what is the most fulfilling part of what you do for DPS?
Yeah. So I'm the Executive Director, like you said, of Multilingual Education. I've been in bilingual education for almost 20 years.
Wow.
So as a paraprofessional, as a teacher, bilingual classroom teacher and paraprofessional, I speak Spanish.
Fun fact,
I lived in Peru for 3 years after college and got to learn the culture in Spanish and the food most of all in Peru is
Which
the best
is the
part.
best,
Yeah.
yes.
And so I've been with the multilingual education department for about the last 9 years, 8 years, in a variety of roles. And this is my first year in the executive director position.
Oh, congrats.
Well, thanks. I've been learning a lot.
Yes, I bet.
Not making too many mistakes, hopefully.
Not a single
Not
one.
a single one.
Yeah.
And the most fulfilling thing, I got to spend a lot of this week in classrooms. We had some site visits and seeing kids harness the power of both of their languages and their culture and being comfortable and encouraged to express that in the classroom as part of who they are and part of how they learn fills me with so much joy and shows me that our programming and that our language services are really working to not only help students learn English, but also to make sure they keep their native languages and that we value those as a system and in our schools.
I like what you said about that because we have kind of a saying here at DPS where we say, fill our cup, right? And I feel when we go to schools and talk to students and interact with students, it fills our cup with all of the wonderful things that we do.
Yeah.
So I want to ask, the topic of the show today, what is the Seal of Biliteracy?
Yeah, so the Seal of Biliteracy is a nationally recognized award earned by our 11th and 12th graders, and it signals to colleges and employers that a student has attained college level literacy in 2 or more languages. We started offering this in 2016.
Okay.
And since then, we've had over 5,000 seniors graduate. They get this on their diploma. You can see here's what a diploma looks like. And the seal is an actual seal right there. And they get this cord too. And of course, a pin that we're both wearing, Seal of Biliteracy. And those 5,000 kiddos have earned the seal in more than 52 languages, or in 52 languages. So it's not just Spanish and English. We value all of the native languages our students bring. So it's really exciting.
That is exciting, and I bet it's a lot of work.
Well, naturally.
Yes. My next question here is, what is the difference between being bilingual and then getting the Seal of Biliteracy?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So being bilingual is kind of at the core of students' identities, right? They're in a bilingual house, they're bicultural, they're living in 2 worlds, and so that's kind of at the core of who you are. And it's something you have for life, right? We always say that being bilingual is a superpower.
I like that.
Right? And so when you're bilingual, you can speak and navigate the world in more than one language. When you're biliterate, this is a really official recognition that shows you can speak, write, read, and listen at the college level in multiple languages. So it's a step beyond, and it's really that official stamp that you can use to get into college, to get a job. And we've heard from a lot of our students that they do have it on their job applications well after they graduate from DPS, because it shows that very high level of fluency, both written, speaking, listening, writing.
I wish I had that in my diploma because I think that would really have made me stand out as a candidate.
Absolutely, yeah.
Going along with that, how does having the seal impact our students' careers in the future?
Yeah, so we include it, like we said, on their diploma, and it's in their transcript, so as they're applying to colleges, it shows up right there. And what we've heard from a lot of our students is that they mention it in interviews, when they're interviewing, and that people are always very impressed with it. Like you said, it really makes you stand out. We know that in any job where you interact with the public, it is useful to speak more than one language. So we hear from our students that it really takes them a long way, including in how much you pay, how much you earn, right? Students can get paid more. I know in all of our jobs in DPS, when you're teaching, you earn more for speaking another language. And so we really see students in college, career, in life able to be more successful with the SEAL.
I like that. My next question for you is, why is language and culture important to DPS?
It's a great question. We talk a lot about the whole child in DPS, right? Our students don't just show up as individuals that we can teach things to. They show up with a language and a culture and a background and an identity. And that's so important to us. We want them to, when they come to school, be able to live through their language and culture and be able to use their language and culture as assets in their journey. And so what we've heard from our students around that is that earning the SEAL has given them more confidence and to be able to continue to use their language and culture, and given them pride in who they are in a way that is really tangible. And so we want our students to always be able to maintain that, to learn about other cultures, to develop as many languages as possible. And we want every single student in this district to have the chance to become bilingual, multilingual, biliterate, multiliterate in as many languages as they desire.
I think it's important to note, right, when we're looking at what makes us confident, when someone has recognized, not just yourself, right, like you can say within yourself, like, I feel comfortable enough to speak another language to a certain extent, right? But when you have a SEAL like that, I think you do carry it kind of like a badge or a button of honor.
Yeah, well, and it goes. It shows that it's not just you recognizing that in yourself, that an outside, probably not so such that, but an outside institution has said this person has these skills in multiple languages, and that means a lot to have that stamp. That's not just you; it's recognized by other people and nationally.
Wow, that is amazing, and it's amazing that we offer it to our students.
Yeah,
so many of them, right? Is being biliterate important for our students' future? We talked about their career, but about their future in general.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, we call being bilingual a superpower, and so we see for our students that it's an opportunity for them to explore their passions. It's an opportunity for them to really harness who they are and what they know from home into their passions at school, into their livelihood as they become adults. They also are able to make more connections in their community, in their workplaces, outside. And we also know that learning a second language has proven benefits for cognitive development, for executive functioning, for our brains being, the bilingual brain works differently. There's lots of science around it that shows how much more flexible your brain is when you navigate two languages and two cultures like that.
I've said this on this show before, but Nelson Mandela said, you speak to someone in a language they can understand, it goes to their head. But when you speak to them in their language, it goes to their heart. And that's something that's really resonated with me in our work that we do here at DPS, because we try to meet folks not in a language that they understand, but in their language.
That's right.
I also have a follow-up question. I keep seeing these buttons that say, I'm bilingual.
What's your superpower?
What's your superpower?
Yeah.
Is that from your office?
It sure is. I forgot to wear mine today. I was looking in my bag to see if I had an extra one. But yeah, they say, soy bilingüe. What's your superpower?
What's the point of that?
To really show that being bilingual is a superpower. I mean, for a long time in education, we thought that having another language was something to overcome, and we had to teach these kids English. And of course, we do want our students to learn English and be comfortable in that space. And that background language and culture is a superpower. It gives them so many more opportunities and connections and rewires their brain to work differently and more efficiently. So we see it as a superpower, and we want our staff and students to see that too.
I like that, because that means I have a superpower.
That's right.
For my next question, for those who are watching and those who are listening, we have a very cool diploma here on set. And this is kind of the end product, right? That's right. But I want to know, what can students and parents do in elementary school and in middle school to start looking at becoming biliterate and eventually earn the SEAL?
That's a great question. So, I mean, first of all, families can always encourage their children to start developing language early on. So if you have another language in your house, talk in that language, read in that language, watch movies in that language. encourage your kids to explore their languages. I know my daughter right now is reading Percy Jackson, and there's a lot in Latin in there, and she wants to learn Latin, and I'm like, girl, go for it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how useful that is, but go for it, And so encouraging that and making space for that. And we're always speaking in Spanish and English in my house too. So she's, wanting to develop those spaces so you can do a lot at home. Additionally, we have a lot of bilingual programs in the district where kiddos learn grade level content in more than one language. And of course, if you're able to travel, I think most of my most valuable language experiences have been when I've immersed myself into a different language and culture, and haven't been able to use English, right? And had to really get in there and connect in a different way. We also have some programs in middle school. There's a program called Career Connect that helps students kind of explore what careers they might be interested in. And really highlighting that in most careers, being multilingual or bilingual or biliterate is an asset and is something that will put you above other candidates in that pool. So helping them kind of explore careers early so they can find out what they want to be and how languages can be a part of that.
I like that a lot, especially what you said about immersing yourself in another language. My most difficult thing about that, though, is sometimes I think in Spanish, but I have to say it in English.
Totally.
And so I'm always working that through.
Yeah.
I remember in high school, we went to a French restaurant as part of our French class final, and you could only order in French and you can only speak in French. And it was uncomfortable, but it was very cool.
Yeah.
Because by the end of it, I realized how much French I had actually retained.
Right. Yeah. And that's like a person who's monolingual can't even fathom that experience of thinking in one language and having to produce in another language. And we hear our students, we call it translanguaging, really using the code switching between Spanish and English. And if you start a sentence in English, but you know the next word in Spanish, like, that's okay. Use all of the language you have to make meaning.
Yes.
And it's really magical to see how students do that.
That's how the language Spanglish.
That's right. And there's nothing wrong with Spanglish. Like, Spanglish is pretty magical.
Yeah.
To think that how your brain can make those connections across languages and across neurons.
When I used to feel dumb because I was like, I don't know the next word in that same language. But now it's like, no, I'm actually pretty smart.
Yeah, we're trying to change that experience for our students.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If I were a parent and I had a child attending a bilingual program at DPS, what would they learn in that program?
Yeah, they would learn language and grade level content in English and Spanish. So in all of our bilingual programs, they have access to grade level content, to dedicated language instruction, and to that neat cultural experience of being a part of two language groups. So they're really great ways for students to experience language and culture and to be learning grade level content along the way.
I like that because we were at Valdez doing a promo video, and I was I didn't know Valdez was a dual language school, and all of the students there spoke more than one language.
Yeah.
And it was very cool to see and how they were able to relate in more than one language. And it just blew my mind.
Right. And how they just navigate that so naturally. My son is in a dual language program. He's in preschool right now in ECE.
Very cool.
And the way hearing him talking to his classmates and talking with his teacher and talking to us at home, and he's just between languages all of the time. You can see his brain just firing and making these different connections. It's really neat.
I like that.
Yeah.
In such a diverse district, the school district that we work in and have our kiddos in, is this an option only for students who speak English and Spanish?
No, of course not. The seal is an option for any student in the district and can be earned in any language, right? So when a student graduates from high school, they have to demonstrate English proficiency, which is kind of embedded in graduation requirements, and proficiency in another language, in reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So we have a lot of ways we let them do that. For some of those languages, we have a pretty easy standardized test they can take. For others, where there's not that test, we use a company that helps us build a portfolio that's assessed by a native speaker of that language, so that they, regardless of the native language or the language you're learning, you have a chance to earn the seal and have that recognized.
What is a language that the students have gotten the seal that is kind of a language you don't often hear in Denver?
I think we've had some in Chuquis, in Tigrinya, which are languages we're starting to see more of. But the first couple, we were like, ooh, check these out. Like, these are languages we haven't heard of.
Right.
One other really cool thing about the students who earn our seal, 60% of them are multilingual learners. So they start in our multilingual education programs, and they learn English and maintain their native language throughout. That's kind of the opposite of a lot of other programs across the country where more of their English speakers are learning a language through world languages. We have a lot of kiddos who do that too, but we're so proud of our multilingual learners and that our program is really carrying them through to English and maintaining their native language.
And that's a unique thing that
is
Denver
a unique
Public
thing
Schools
to
is doing?
Denver.
Wow. Another great reason to go to Denver Public Schools.
Yep.
Moving on to the information side
Sure.
and the resources side, is there a website where parents and students can go to get more information about the Seal of Biliteracy?
Yep, absolutely. It's sealofbiliteracy.dpsk12.org. So there's tons of information housed there. And if your child is in high school now, please have them talk with their school counselors and teachers. They have a lot of information about that and can direct them to the right resources they need.
Thank you. Can we close this podcast by sharing what goes through your mind when you have that big yearly ceremony and see other students get their certificate of being bilingual and biliterate?
Oh, it's the best night of the year.
Yeah.
So every year we have a huge celebration where we invite all of the seniors who have earned the seal, and they invite their friends and their family and their teachers, and we pack an auditorium, and they come across the stage and they say in the language in which they've earned the seal, they say it in that language, and it's powerful, it's emotion evoking, it's tear evoking for some kids. It's so meaningful, and it makes the work that we do. It really like puts the bow on it. Like this is giving students, a chance to maintain their language and culture and a chance to, continue to be successful in their career in college and beyond.
And when is this event happening this year?
This year, it's at George Washington High School on May 9th at 5 p.m.
All right. And can anyone go?
Yeah, it'll be a packed house, but sure, anyone is welcome to attend.
So show up early.
Show up early, come early, come often.
Right. Well, Adrian, I want to thank you so much for coming onto this podcast and giving us this truly valuable information. Folks, this concludes our Educa DPS podcast for today. Please help us share this content with families, friends, and other community members. And for more Educa content and other stories, visit and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Denver Public Schools Plus. Also, check us out on your favorite podcast platform. It is important to give credit to the folks behind the scenes who will contribute to making all of this and all of our DPS multimedia productions. I want to start off with our executive director, Will Jones, our director of external communications, Scott Pribble, our director of internal communications, Selena Nakamura, the man behind the camera, Don Pierce, executive producer and videographer, our very own Beto Gaitan, our multimedia lead producer and the host of the Spanish Educa, Hannah Young, our guru of social media, Georgia Alexander, our Bond and Mill Levy communication specialist, Trey Hill, our strategic communication specialist, April Spites, our graphic designer. A very special thank you to our DPS educators, students, and parents, and a big thank you to our Dr. Marrero, proud superintendent of Denver Public Schools. This has been Javier Ibarra, yours truly, Senior Manager of Media and Public Relations, as well as the Educa host in English. Please remember to tell your children more often, and say it with me, Adrian, I believe in you, and I know you can do it. Until next time, thank you so much.